What's up, y'all? My name is T.Shaw, and this is Brewin Black Podcast, where the contents we serve you is authentic, vulnerable, and relatable. That means we serve you with no cream and no sugar.
I guess I like my coffee black.
What's good, y'all? It's your boy T.Shaw, pronouns he, him, his, and welcome to Brewin Black, where we give you the latest and greatest in Black news, entertainment, and experts. So today we have Tami with us. What's up, Tami? Tami Fashina is a lawyer and an entertainment law scholar based in LA. He has a law degree in England and America and UCLA Law. He's always looking at issues with a global perspective, having lived in 6 different countries on 4 different continents. In his free time, you can find him playing field hockey or football, aka soccer, or tearing it up on the dance floor. Welcome to the show, Tami.
Hey Tristan, how you doing?
It's been a long time, man. It's been a long time.
I know. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, but, you look good. Beard full, you know what I mean?
I had to make my debut. Couldn't come on here. I was in the barber this morning. I had to make sure he had me right.
Okay, look, I wish I did the same thing, honestly. But yes, last time I saw you, you weren't an Esquire, so I do want to say congratulations.
Thank you. It was a long journey.
Absolutely. So today we will be talking to Tami about his article on doping in esports. And you might be wondering, doping in esports? What do those things have to do with each other? But we'll dive into that. But before we jump into that, I definitely want to talk to Tami and get the audience to get to know who you are, right? You have a very unique journey. Just like you said, just like I just said, you've been to 6 different countries on 4 different continents. If you follow Tami on Instagram, he has, I think, like 5 or 6 different country flags in his bio. So I just want you to share a little bit. Walk us through what brought you here today.
Yeah, I guess so I've always been a lifelong immigrant. I'm Nigerian, Yoruba. I was born in Nigeria and lived there until I was 3 years old, very elementary. And then I moved to South Africa, where I grew up mostly and kind of spent most of my life.
Okay.
What was interesting is that when I was in South Africa, my dad he moved to Dubai. So we kind of spent maybe a quarter of the year in Dubai for about 3 years.
Wow.
It was very interesting at the time, early 2000s, definitely transforming. But I went to high school in South Africa, then went to university in England.
Okay.
And that was cool, very interesting cultural change, a lot of similarities, a lot of differences. And while I was in England, my family moved again to Ghana, home of the terrible jollof rice. Wonderful people, though. I can't cook rice. But I love it there. We lived in Accra, and I would spend my holidays there. Beautiful country. And then I decided to come to the U.S., and that's where I've been based for the last 4 years now. Okay. And it's definitely been an interesting and worthwhile journey. A lot of experiences, whether it's in law or just life, and I'm happy where I am.
Okay, dope. And what age did you move to South Africa?
So I was 3, and then I stayed there I went to university at 18, and we officially moved when I was 20.
Okay, to England?
To Ghana.
Ghana, okay.
So yeah, 20, I stopped coming back to South Africa. I'd go back to Ghana.
Okay. And you said the cultural change between South Africa and England. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess in South Africa, I grew up as a Nigerian immigrant in South Africa, which was very much a minority immigrant group. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I guess, South Africa and its view on immigration. There's a lot of xenophobia in South Africa, particularly aimed at, other Africans. They kind of call it Afrophobia because they're not hating on Germans or people from Wales.
White people.
White people. It's like Zimbabweans, Nigerians, those are the 2 biggest ones, maybe Somalis. It's this whole issue where it often results in violence. It's the same type of thing you see in the US often, the whole replacement theory, stealing our jobs, that type of thing. So I guess growing up Nigerian as a Nigerian immigrant in South Africa, it was always a little bit hostile in that, like, oh, I sometimes run into questions of people on the street, like, oh, why don't you speak Zulu? Or,
Oh wow.
yeah, that type of little animosity. But I mean, I love South Africa. I identify as South African. Like, it's where I was raised. And then when I moved to England, what was interesting was that there was a very large Nigerian community, Nigerian immigrant community there, and second generation Nigerians. And that's where I felt, oh, there are people that are just like me, like, oh, their parents Nigerian, like they Nigerian at home, and then whatever community they're out with during the day and that type of lifestyle. And I was like, oh, like this is very normal. I'm meeting people from all across Nigeria, different tribes.
Okay.
So it's been like
a journey.
A journey to say the least.
Okay. And you talked about the xenophobia in South Africa, and that makes me curious. These were Black people in South Africa with xenophobic views.
Not only Black, but I guess in the worst types of violence, it would be amongst Black South Africans and other African groups.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, being Nigerian was generally an insult in South Africa.
Wow.
Like one of my core memories was I was on a field hockey tour, and I was we were riding the bus back from Namibia, this different country, to South Africa. This guy a white guy who I got on with quite a lot during the tour, we were sitting next to each other, and all of a sudden he was like, "Tami, I heard they said that you were Nigerian." And I was like, yeah, I'm Nigerian. And he was like, oh. And then he kind of just shifted away
Oh
his
wow.
seat like this.
Wow. He said you ain't beat the allegations.
Exactly. He was just like, oh, I've heard about your people. And I was just like, damn.
Yikes.
But that was the type of, so it wasn't only exclusively Black people. It was just a very, I guess, a general, I guess, obviously, like amongst white community, like there was a lot of racism, there was that type of vibe,
Okay.
but adding to that you're foreign, you're not a South African Black, like there's also stigma of being foreign.
Okay.
It kind of doubled that down.
And do you think it's like kind of influenced by apartheid maybe?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
it's solely influenced by apartheid in that a lot of South Africans, their lives never really changed after apartheid ended, even into democracy. And there's a lot of, I guess, resentment, hurt, where it feels like, oh, other Black people are being put ahead of us in our country. Whereas I guess a lot of misdirected anger,
yeah.
because the issue in South Africa is that really wealth was never redistributed after apartheid. So the people with the inequitable amount of wealth are the 8% of white South Africans in the country. But it's just an easier, more reachable target to go, oh, these Nigerians, Zimbabweans, other Africans are the issue and not the structural problems that were never really resolved.
Oh, I love that. Because that makes me think of the U.S., right? Like,
yeah.
I think of
very similar.
Yeah, African Americans here might misdirect that at African immigrants or Caribbean immigrants or Latino immigrants, right? But again, that's like low-hanging fruit.
Exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense.
It's easy to get to. It's kind of just like, well, why are they doing well and not us when they're just like us? Or they're not better than us?
Or they just got here.
Yeah,
like,
they just got here. Or it's like, it's just, you don't really want to deal with the guy at the top type of thing.
You don't even know that's the one to blame.
Oh, yeah,
too.
true.
Dang. Okay. So, and that also, again, we're talking about the U.S. and that makes me think about the U.S. So what was the toughest part about immigrating to the U.S.?
Immigrating to the U.S.
Or was it easy?
It was always interesting. I think when I came to the U.S., one of the thoughts was that, I guess one of the cons are Donald Trump's president, et cetera, et cetera. One of the pros I told myself at the time was like, well, it's interesting political times, I suppose. It might be interesting to be on the ground to really see it. After 4 years here, I can tell you I never want to live in unprecedented times.
So what year did you come? 2018?
2018.
Okay.
I remember my first week here. I was heading home from the club one time
In LA?
in Santa Monica. It was back when Uber pools were a thing.
Yeah, I miss those days.
Yeah. So I get in the Uber pool. My Uber driver's talking to me. We pick up two guys, and they're really drunk. My Uber pool driver, he is a diehard Hillary Clinton supporter. He is a Trump should get shot supporter. These two guys we pick up are from Ohio.
I'm from Ohio, so
Yeah.
I don't want to hear no slander. But I get it. I get it.
I mean, you know the type from Ohio, though.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them is like kind of like this, I guess, center conservative guy. The other one is drunk and belligerent. So like I'm just like, oh wow, okay, let's see what happens. I think the drunk one drops a comment, or they both drop a comment about how California isn't the real America. And my Uber driver takes offense to this. Like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, look, I mean, to be fair, he was correct in this point. California has a lot of different political sects in it, where you will find areas where it's like, oh, this is a very conservative bubble, or this is a very liberal bubble. But they were just on like, nah, it's not. It's just not like it's liberal elite type of thing. And then this drunk guy just went on going on this whole tirade. You know the spiel.
Yeah.
I'm in the front. All of a sudden, my Uber driver, he's losing it. He's turning around, shouting at these guys. They're shouting back. I'm over here. I'm just like, sir, please put your ass off the road.
I'm just trying to make it home.
For real. I was like, damn, so this is America.
This is America.
And I guess, so, I mean, that wasn't too difficult. I guess the difficult part has always been, I guess, immigration restrictions, which has always been, as someone who's come in to professional school to to really make a profession out of yourself, I always felt it interesting that I guess you have this capitalist society who's always like, oh, free market, make of it what you will. But like, if you're coming in from another country, we're gonna put some restrictions, some weights, some ankle weights on your feet.
Oh wow, that's a great analogy.
So like, for example, you couldn't walk in your first year off campus.
Oh wow.
Which is, as a JD student, like a lot of people secure their big law jobs in their first year, well, in their first summer. But if you're an international student, you can't work off campus in the United States at all.
Oh, so that's really like playing with handy.
Yeah, for real. And like that's or like if you have very valuable work experience, the second year, well, going into second year, that's when you have what's called OCI, and that's again where you could get a big law job, get the best type of job.
Because it's like a fair in a way, right?
Exactly. But they look at your experience, and I guess if you had better experience or experience off campus or in the United States, like also employers are also very much looking for American experience.
Xenophobia.
Yeah.
It's an American exceptionalism for sure.
Exactly. So like, that is a very big restriction in the legal market, in that you don't have that type of experience. And I mean, some people will be able to fight through that, I guess, really like maybe come at the top of their class and push through nevertheless. But
you got to be like cream of the crop, like no blemishes, nothing.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, especially as a student, like kind of coming into this, not really knowing the full reality of the job market and how employers think, because everyone's learning at the same time. It's just like, oh, like it's actually not the same for me, which is, I guess, it's always interesting because, like, I guess throughout law school, like you're with your friends, with your students, like your peers, you always kind of think of yourself as the same, but then you kind of realize slowly, hold on, the opportunities are not exactly the same.
I get that. So speaking of law school, what inspired you to study law? I know a lot of people study law because of the money. So like it brings wealth. Some people aspire to the status. Some people want to do good and because they've had maybe a family history of struggles with the legal system. What inspired you to study law?
So I mean, my go-to answer is always I was bad at maths and I wanted to make money. But
Okay.
on the real, I was first started studying law when I was 18.
Okay.
I started in the UK, and at the time, I didn't know I wanted to be a lawyer. All I understood was that law is, an institutional fabric of society. And understanding that, being able to move through that would be highly beneficial in anyone's life. Just
Okay.
having a firm grasp of the law, legal systems, that type of thing.
Okay.
And I only realized I really wanted to be a lawyer when I started working in entertainment, working entertainment jobs. Because I always kind of thought, oh, law sounds kind of boring. And then my first year of working, I guess, in undergrad, I worked at a firm that did a lot of, I guess, sports and entertainment law. And I was reviewing contracts, and I was like, hold on,
It's kind of
wait,
cool.
there's law for like Wimbledon and, and like sports and TV. There's law for that, and I was just like, oh,
I could do
that's
this.
really cool. I like this.
Okay.
And then I kept on going. I kept working in entertainment. I worked in South African entertainment as well. Pan-African broadcaster, trying to, I guess, really set its tone in like what type of TV and other types of forms of television that they wanted to set. And it was just really in-depth, great experience. And I was like, okay, this is something, if you're working in this area, you would get to see the tangible benefits of your work, like right in front of you. You're watching TV and you would be like, I put this on TV, or I worked with the talent that's there, or that type of thing. So I was, okay, I wanted to be an entertainment lawyer. And that's why I decided to come to LA. I mean, it was originally meant to be just for a year, but then I got here and I was like, yo, this is the big leagues. Like, this is the NBA. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I always, like, when I was, like, struggles with immigration, with that type of thing, just general law school things, I was studying for the bar last year, and, like, it was towards, like, week 8. It was getting crazy. It was getting very tense. Like, in my house, sometimes I'd just be walking around, you might just hear me screaming.
Because of studying for the bar?
Studying, yeah.
Okay,
it was just, it gets very intense. Okay. But at the same time, it was the NBA Finals. And my boy Giannis Adetokounmpo, his Nigerian name was, a lot of people don't realize he's from Nigeria. And he was doing his thing, and it was strange, but for me, this was the most inspiring thing out there. I was just like, all right, there's this other young Nigerian guy taking on the world, doing his thing, hitting 17 from 19 free throws in the finals. And
when they say he can't shoot.
Yeah, I was just like, yo, if he could do that, I could pass the ball for sure. If he could hit those free throws. But it's always like, when I came here, I came here because I wanted to be the best at what I do. And I feel like this is the direction that I'm going on. And again, with Giannis, when he first came to America, I can't remember which play it was, but he told this story of how, the coach said, look, if you work hard, you could be like a solid role player just this guy. And then his response was like, yo, if I end up being like this guy, I'm going back to Greece. And it was the same with me. Like, I came here, I guess, not to just, like, I don't know, like, just play the part. I came here to really do my thing, to get to the top. And it's a fight, but it's you're on the right direction.
Okay. And that kind of answers my next question, because when I met you, you were a LLM student, which for people that don't know, that's a master's in law. And I was, I guess, wondering, like, what inspired the switch? Did you just fall in love with the program and you decided that it had everything that you needed?
Yeah, well, UCLA is a great school. And I was like, I mean, studying here for a couple more years wouldn't be bad. But I guess in my professional ambitions, it was also like, look, to get to where I want to be, like, an LLM's not going to cut it. Like, you have to do a JD. So what do I have to do to get into the JD program? And it turned out it was very hard. It was not a walk in the park, but I did it. And it was just like, okay, I mean, step one. This is what I could step my mind to. And then at the time, so the LLM, at the time, I was like, okay, the issue is having an LLM and not a JD. But then I got into the JD and I was like, wow, kind of still having some of the same struggles I had as an LLM, even though I'm like on the right program now. And it, like after that, it took a while to be like, oh, okay. The issue really is that, I mean, I'm foreign. I just don't have unauthorized work access.
Okay.
So like employers are always like, the whole system is essentially geared towards not hiring me. In like, for example, the H1 visa lottery, which is what you have to do, which is what you have to obtain after you graduate from university, whether undergrad or grad school. And sometimes you have a year, it's called optional practical training.
Okay.
But I guess for all non-science degrees, you have 1 year, and then you have to go into the H1B lottery, which is kind of a throw-off to many employers because it is a lottery where your chances are about 18 to 20%
Oh wow.
of getting selected.
And then companies don't want to take a chance on that.
Yeah.
Or firms or whatever type of work you do.
Yeah. They don't want to take. I think they don't want to take a chance on that. Maybe some don't want to pay for the sponsorship. It's just like in competitive fields where like your roles are decided on like very fine lines. I just realized, okay, it's not enough to be good. You have to be extra because they're gonna look at this as as a down point for you compared to someone else. And yeah, I guess that clicked throughout law school. After law school, I was like, you just have to keep on trying to do more, essentially.
Okay. And so this one's a more personal question, I guess, on my end. So I was a part of the UCLA Law Fellows program, and I was
Great program.
amazing program. Shout out to UCLA Law Fellows. Y'all put me on game. But I think the thing that dissuaded me the most was other law students and talking to them. And not only did they struggle with mental health, imposter syndrome, but I think one of the biggest things was struggling on what to do with their lives after law school. I saw a lot of people coming in with great intentions to do different things, and then I guess seeing how much money they could make, right? And I heard the phrase so often that made me uncomfortable. They talked about selling their soul. Have you heard that phrase, and what do you think law students mean by that?
I mean, yeah, it's really common. It's the public interest to big law pipeline. It is. Law school is not really designed, especially these top law schools. The elite law schools are not designed for most people to chase their interests outside of big law, unless you are exceptionally not self-interested.
Yeah.
Because for example, a big law summer position pays a 1L associate or a 2L associate around $40,000 a summer.
Ooh.
That's money, right?
Yeah. That's more than some people make in their whole year.
Public interest.
And what's that, 10 weeks?
10 weeks.
Wow.
A public interest position will likely be unpaid. Your university will probably offer you a stipend of around maybe $4,000 to $8,000.
Wow. So maybe just enough to live and pay your rent.
Literally. But not enough to pay loans. And not enough to ball out for sure. And the thing is that like with people who do well, people who like doing well is difficult, and then the people who do well is just this big temptation. Like, oh, I've got these good grades. Like the big law is knocking on. They're looking at you. They got the money for
recruited. I'm getting scouted. It's the NFL draft. You feel me?
They got the suitcase money over here. They got the shoes with your name on.
Do you want to play for the Cowboys or the Browns? Like,
and you're like, no, I wanna help the kids.
I feel it.
So it's tough for a lot of people where like, they kind of feel like they have to, I guess, sacrifice their ideals or what they really desire for, just for the practical realities. Like, look, I've got family, I've got loans. Like, this is the type of money that could take care of myself and my loved ones for a while. Like, not even in law school, after law school, because like once you get in, it's a very straight route to stay in, but you have to stick to the long hours and selling your soul. But to be fair, the long hours is just part of the legal career. Yeah, you'll work long hours everywhere you go, but somewhere will pay you 5 times as much to do it. It's similar for people who are interested in entertainment, even at UCLA, best entertainment law school in the country or the world. And like you're often encouraged not to really pursue your interests, I guess not forthrightly. Like you're often encouraged to keep it a secret because, I mean, they want you to go to the big law route. Big law firms are not always eager on people who are interested in entertainment because, well, they feel like they only want to do entertainment and they don't want to do anything else. So if they don't get entertainment, they're going to be disinterested in the rest of the program. And then the jobs to get into entertainment are very low paying, because everyone wants to get into entertainment. Everyone wants to do it. So you're going to do this for free? Yeah. I know someone who will do it for free.
Wow.
So it's that type of thing, I guess, where people mean like, look, the finding out that the realities of pursuing your dreams are not what you thought they would be, and kind of the really, well, where you're being strongly encouraged to go is the corporate route is, I guess, very jading for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, there are many people who are like, this is what I wanted to do. This is, I enjoy this. I enjoy corporate. But I did enjoy corporate work, but I just knew that my interests, lied more in, entertainment corporate. Well, not necessarily corporate work, talent. And like really helping people, facilitating their goals, their ideals, like setting up what they want to do.
And that's more of a passion for you.
Yeah, that was a passion. That's a really rewarding aspect for me. It was, you could help individuals with these corporate like skills, and it's like that you could really see them progress throughout their careers. And I guess eventually one day it could be lucrative.
Yeah, that's dope. Okay, cool. So let's hop into your work a little bit. So you wrote a phenomenal article, phenomenal legal article on doping in esports.
Yeah.
But I think for our audience, like they're probably wondering, like, esports, what's that? So could you just start us off by kind of breaking down, like, what is esports?
Okay, I mean, esports is interesting. It's not just one thing. So. Like, think of esports like you think of sports. In sports, there are many different types of sports.
Absolutely.
There's football, basketball, field hockey. Shout out to field hockey. And in esports, there are many different types of games that constitute a sport. It would essentially be, it's competitive gaming.
Okay.
And how it's run, there's a very fragmented structure, but the big power holders are the game publishers. So
like Blizzard, Activision.
The guys who make the games are the guys who really have the power. Because think of the NBA, right? Now, what if the NBA owned basketball?
I mean, I feel like they almost do, right? Like, because it's the only way you can play professionally.
Oh, yeah, true.
Unless you go overseas.
In the United States.
But like, you're talking about worldwide.
Yeah, but what if the NBA could come to your house and say, you can't play basketball?
Oh, unless you pay us. Wow.
So that is the structure of esports, where the publishers have unlimited power, or because they have the intellectual property behind the game. They own the game. So like they could kick you off the game, they could do whatever. If you want to play the game, you have to pay. You can't just pick up a ball and set up a hoop. You gotta pay the game to pay them to play the game. Okay. So they're the big power holders in the esports world, and esports is very much a way in which they make money, in that they make games to be esports games, to be competitive. Then there are what you call third-party competition owners, who publishers essentially lease their games to host tournaments. Okay. And there's some very big ones, but that's also where a lot of the money lies. And either the publisher owns the tournament solely and hosts it itself, or the third-party licensee has the tournament and does its own games. And then there comes the teams and the players.
Okay.
So there are many different types of teams, there are many different types of games, many different types of players, and they come into these competitions and they compete. And I know for a lot of people, they're like, oh, what does it mean to compete in esports? To get to a professional level, it takes a lot. These athletes, these talent, they are practicing maybe for the average 7 to 10 hours a day.
Wow.
For the elite, 12 to 15 hours a day. And like, have you ever played online in any type of game?
Oh yeah,
And then you just get your ass
Warzone.
kicked.
I get worse, bro. I only play about an hour, and it's just me and my friends call them sweaty lobbies because sometimes there be people like jumping, spinning, shooting, and it's like, I get on here just for shits and giggles. So
I
it's
just
like,
want to chill after work.
man, yeah.
You guys are
But it's
ruining
not
my
even fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need y'all to put me in the C League. Like, I'm not trying to play with the hyper competitive people. I want to run on like the weenie court.
For real. Where's the easy slope?
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the type of guys that are really competing, really going to the higher level.
Okay.
And like as you could see in these lobbies, there's so many different levels to it, and it's always like sport, trying to push to the next level, trying to be the best. And the esports industry has just blown up in the last 10 years. It's become a multi-billion-dollar industry, extremely lucrative. You can now become extremely successful as a competitive gamer when you couldn't before. And it's the type of thing that we saw in sports. Sports used to be a semi-professional, almost hobby.
That's true.
Type of thing.
Like basketball used to have plumbers.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Handyman.
You did this in your spare time. Turns out you're kind of good at it. It can't pay the bills though. But as you saw the professionalization of it, like, oh, okay, we can have stars, contracts,
advertising.
yeah, the talent. We can make a lot of money off of these guys. But at the same time, when there is all that money at stake, there's always that drive to cheat, to get to the next level. And like I said, you see it in sports, you see it in esports, and that's where doping comes in. But then the question is, what is doping in esports?
Yeah. And really quickly, so you consider it a sport. I heard you call them athletes.
Yeah.
It's called a sport. But you consider it a sport.
I consider it.
Some people might say it's just gaming. You on the game. My mom be like, "Oh, you just on the game. Like, go outside, go get some fresh air, go touch some grass."
I mean, there are a lot of studies. There are a lot of studies on what do these athletes go through while they're playing. Like they analyze their heart, they analyze their heart rate, their focus, that type of thing. The physical aspect of going through a competitive esports game, and it is replicative to what you see in a lot of different types of sports where tense moments are happening and it's like, okay, you could see the body reacting to this type of focus. You could see the strain on the body. That they're able to measure it. And I could go into this in my article a little bit. Some people, even in esports, would disagree with you. They would say this isn't a sport. This is a cultural phenomenon. We're playing games. Which is people who are advocates of dope. I don't think like we should be allowed to dope. This isn't really a sport. It's not like that. Like if I wanted to take something before a game, that's my prerogative. But at the same time, what you're seeing from the industry is it's very definitely labeling itself as a sport, where it wants to be adjacent, if not, and integrated into competitive sports.
I saw that they wanted to be part of the Olympics. People have been pushing for them to be a part of the Olympics.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is the end goal, like of where they want esports to go. But you're even seeing it. A lot of esports are partnering with professional leagues and professional teams. A lot of NFL teams have a Madden esports team. Same with NBA. Or like same with the Premier League. They've got a lot of FIFA teams. Yeah. By the way, if anyone here wants to pay me on FIFA, I will kick your ass.
So he's a gamer. Esports.
E for everybody. So it is. It gets to that level where players want that advantage. So it's like, how do you get that advantage? And in esports, it is interesting enough. Well, they're called nootropics, Adderall, Ritalin, that type of thing that gets you to focus more while you're playing. I think the common misconception, I guess, I mean, for people who observe esports, is that quick reactions is what's best for a gamer. If you were playing a game, it's your reaction speed that makes you a better player. Not necessarily amongst the best players. A lot of them that testify the natural ability is really concentration, elongated concentration. And being able to do that naturally separates them from the rest. And that's why when you have Adderall, Ritalin drugs that could make you focus more, it does add that advantage. And people dispute how much of an advantage that is because there hasn't really been a comprehensive study on, I guess, drug use in esports. But I guess in my paper, I draw on a similar field. I look at chess. Also classified as a sport, has its own drug list of what's prohibited. And it's the same type of thing. They ban nootropics because they're of the opinion like concentration, added concentration gives you an advantage in these, strategic games in that if you slip at any one point, that could be what
the game
turns it over. Yeah, the game. So you have to be able to be locked in at all times. So yeah, it's kids snorting Ritalin and Adderall
to play the game tough. So looking into this, I realized not everyone in the community agrees that Adderall and these type of performance enhancing drugs are actually performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Some of them claim like, hey, yeah, it might make you a little bit better on the sticks, but the game is about strategizing. And if you're on Adderall, if you're too hyper focused, you're not communicating with the team. Do you buy that?
So in my article, I look at the WADA focus. WADA is the World Anti-Doping Agency, by the way, and it has a set of, what is essentially laws on how they determine if a drug is performance enhancing. And there are three main criteria. It's one, does it give a competitive advantage? Two, does it damage the health of the athlete? And three, is it against the spirit of the sport? So in terms of does it give a competitive advantage, that really also depends on the person. Some people who would take Adderall and might lock in on something else and would be useless in the game. But for those, you also have to think that, look, they're training with Adderall. They're not taking it for the first time in competition. They've done this while practicing so that they know they could get the benefit of it and also kind of work around some of the hacks. But obviously it's not a perfect science for everyone, but I would say that it definitely does, or at least superficially pose a competitive advantage. And next question is, does it harm the athlete? And Adderall is a prescribed drug. Abuse of it has, several negative side effects. I recall them: diarrhea. You don't want that.
Loss of appetite.
Just some negative things. I mean, that comes with abuse of drugs. So I mean, it definitely affects talent, and you don't want athletes to have this pressure to be like, look, the only way I can compete is if I'm on drugs because everyone else is on drugs. And I'm not going to be able to make it as a pro without that, which means I'm putting my health at risk. And then I guess the last one is whether it's against the spirit of esports. And this is one that's fairly open to interpretation. It's very philosophical. Because what does it mean to be against the spirit of a sport? I guess in most scholars in the esport world put that down to a concept called sporting integrity, which is essentially that there's a coherent set of restrictions on everyone in the game. So if a travel is 2 steps, it's a travel for everybody. If I can't use my hand as an outfield player in football, no one can use their hands as an outfield player in football. And when there isn't that coherence, then there is no sporting integrity in the game. So then you say, okay, if some people are doping, they have an advantage where they're not getting the same restrictions as other people. They're able to focus for longer, where other people's focus would be deteriorating because they're not using these drugs, which is essentially cheating. And people, I guess you would respond to that with like, okay, what if everyone used the drugs? What's wrong with that? And then the response is that, okay, then there's no like sporting coherence for the fans. It's not about the players then, it's the people watching. The players are spectating, and the whole part of sport about entertainment factor is that you are aware of the restrictions that are being implemented and you're judging these athletes
based
along those restrictions, the set of rules. But if they're then cheating, essentially, if none of the athletes are following those rules, as a fan, you don't really know what's going on in the game.
And it diminishes the appreciation for the game.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then the last response is like, okay, then let's just not have any doping rules. Like people always talk about if everyone at the Olympics was on drugs, let's really see
how fast we can run. Yeah.
And then again, okay, not only does that affect health and
it pushes
everything
the limit
like that,
of the human body.
but as a fan, it still disillusions you from the game, because as fans, everyone wants to see people push the limits, people go beyond, like be in a state of disbelief when it comes to sports or esports. But you want to be able to be in believable disbelief. You don't want to be able to be like, that's fake. Like, it's not possible. He only did that because
he was on the drugs. Yeah. And you also don't want to see nobody fall out and die right in front of you.
Exactly. And it's like no one, I mean, as a fan, no one is on LeBron's level. But the dream that, if you train and had the ability, you could have got to LeBron, that's there. If LeBron was just on drugs, like, well, if I took drugs, I could get there as well. I mean, or like no one would get there. It's because he's on drugs. So it's a type of analysis that I guess fans want, spectators want, and like there's studies on this where essentially when fans find out that athletes have been doping in sports, they see engagement in the sports reduce because of this disillusionment. So it hits sports, and it can hit esports economically. The only issue with esports is that it's at a stage right now where the scandals are kind of just starting to come out, where it hasn't blown up yet. Okay. In the sporting world, doping really came to prominence. There have already been rumors of doping. But it was around the Olympics in the 60s. I think it was the Rome Olympics. And there was a cyclist who dropped dead in the race. Oh, wow. And they looked at his body, like they analyzed his blood. He just had a cocktail. He had everything running through his body. And that was when it was like, this is a public scandal. Everyone has seen this. Because the issue with sports, esports, these competitive games, is that you promote yourself as a form of clean, healthy engagement. Like, this is for the betterment of society,
the
type
top
of thing.
tier of this.
This is what you should aspire to. This is a goal.
This is what hard work gets you.
Yeah, hard work gets you, essentially. But then this Nazi side comes out, and you're like, we don't want to see that, because this isn't our image. This isn't our brand. The question that a lot of gamers had, like, hold on, this has always been our brand. Like, there's some very, like, gaming? Like, are you serious? There's some Nazi stuff that's done in this world. But that's not good for business. Esports is going into a very professional route. At least it wants to go into a professional route. That's where the money leads to. But essentially what my paper advocates for is that in going into this professional route, you can't leave behind the talent. You can't leave behind the athletes and essentially exploit them and let them suffer, even if it means you got to protect them from themselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So thinking about the future of esports, it's getting even bigger. I just saw that FaZe is like Atlanta FaZe Clan, I think that's the team. They're worth over $1 billion. So it's like we know that the industry is worth $1 billion, right? Or over $1 billion, multi-billion dollars. But there are teams now worth multi-billion dollars, and it's growing. There's scholarships at university campuses. The industry is just growing. I even saw one report that was saying that more people watch the finals for League of Legends than they had the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So that tells you how huge it is, and it's only gonna grow more. Like I'm hooked on Warzone. Like I know everybody else gonna be hooked. So I guess my question is like, what should we expect moving forward? Like, I know this has been discussed. The doping, at least, has been discussed over the last 2 years. But has much been done? And is there anything planned to be done? Or if nothing is done, what do you think happens?
So I think that esports definitely has to move into a more regulated state to maintain its growth. I guess for this initial growth span, it has kind of been like the Wild West or like the gold rush where everyone has saw money and has just kind of developed as fast as possible and got into that. But the goal for esports is to be a mainstream form of entertainment. Like you said, League of Legends finals had more viewers than the Super Bowl. No one who watches the Super Bowl would ever believe that. But it is a niche. It is a niche industry, but it's popular worldwide.
Yeah.
So if you have that, if you could go into the core, that's what makes it more and more valuable. That's what gives it value to future investors. But they can't keep on going with this gamer culture. Essentially, it has to come to a level of professionalism. And these issues, there's not a lot of scholarship on esports right now, but the majority of the scholarship focuses on different ethical issues in esports and how there needs to be either domestic or international regulation. My paper advocates specifically for an international body. Well, there are several international bodies that handle doping right now. It advocates for the most prominent one to integrate with WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, to essentially, lead to professionalization, support doping programs, anti-drug testing, and just take it to the next level of, we're professing to be a sport. This is what sports do.
The integrity of
it. The integrity, yeah. Okay. Because you just can't get away with it because I guess the people that suffer are going to be talent. And you don't want that. You don't want the athletes to suffer. Investors will always make money, but they could probably make less money if they don't solve the issues.
Absolutely.
And with the fans, I mean, people debate what fans want, but I think expansion is always important. Recognition is always important. And you really only get there in what some might say the selling out route of we like who we are type of thing. But that is the route where it's as you saw in the sports, as it's gonna be maybe not the exact same thing because some of the market dynamics are different, but it has to get to a baseline level of
some type of regulation.
Regulation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for putting us on game. Again, like a lot of people might see this and be like, esports, doping in esports. Why are you talking about this? But I think you showed us why we should care because it is a growing industry. And without these regulations, it will be the wild, wild west. And there's way too much money to be at stake here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So
I'm sorry. You just don't want to see the same mistakes that you saw in professional sports. Like when it came to doping, what was really interesting is that the global political powers played a very big hand in tackling doping in world sports, where the Cold War essentially stopped all doping progress in traditional sports because sports just became a proxy.
So that competitiveness.
The East and the West were just drugging the athletes. Team USA or the Soviet Union's got to take home the gold.
Okay.
But you don't want to see those types of mistakes. Ideally, you'd want to see the esports industry learn and develop in a better way and kind of just, maybe even make a new path. So
Mhm.
not follow the traditional sports path, but make a path where all stakeholders are getting their values. Where I guess the most important part for me is that athletes are getting protected, but everyone is making their money as well.
Okay, cool. So before we close out, I want to do something we call espresso shots. They're going to be rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Keep your answers to one word or one sentence. You've actually you've actually already answered two, so I'm gonna lead with those first,
All right, let's do
and
it.
then we'll hop into the other ones. So the first one was, who has the best jollof rice?
Nigeria. Then Nigeria. Then maybe Senegal.
Okay, but
Ghana
not
might
Ghana.
be Ghana might be top 5. Depends who you
I don't know.
are.
You slandered them earlier. Okay, Giannis or Embiid?
Giannis. That's
Easy.
all day. I mean, Embiid, I like him, but Giannis he's got that competitive spirit that takes it that you can't always be trusting the process. You gotta see those results.
I feel that. LA or London?
I like London in the summertime, but LA overall.
Overall,
Mm.
okay. Field hockey or soccer?
I'm better at field hockey, but I like soccer more.
Okay. And then, what would be one piece of advice you could give to someone that is aspiring to go to law school?
Huh. I would say to aspiring to go to law school, I would say understand the reasons why. Understand why you want to do this. Can you do it another way? I mean, it's not easy, but it's also worth it if this is really what you want to do.
Okay.
And at the same time, once you get there, make use of your friends. Really, the experience is the value of it.
Collective.
Where social capital is probably one of the most important things in
That's
this
a bar.
industry. And I mean, that starts at law school. Not even on a fake networking vibe, but having that really solid group.
That team.
We'll see you through it firstly and could be friends for life.
Okay, I love that. Thank you so much, Tami, for joining us.
I appreciate you for having me.
Absolutely. So, fans, if y'all love to have guests on here, we will bring more experts. Tami was an amazing guest, and we definitely want to grow and expand more in these ways. So, thank you for joining us. Keep the coffee black, and we will see y'all soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Peace.